I woke up early on a Saturday morning, feeling groggy but determined to make the most of my day. I had been feeling a little down lately, and I thought that getting out of the house and crossing some things off my to-do list would help. I had a long list of errands to run, including buying groceries for the week. I got dressed, grabbed my keys and headed out to my car. As I walked to the garage, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The sky was overcast and the streets were eerily quiet. I tried to shake it off, thinking that it was just my imagination. I got in my car and started the engine. As I drove to the grocery store, the feeling of unease only grew stronger. The streets were empty and the few cars I saw on the road seemed to be in a hurry. I turned on the radio, hoping that some music would take my mind off things, but all the stations were playing static. I turned it off and focused on the road ahead. I arrived at the store and parked my car. As I walked to the entrance, I noticed that the windows were fogged up and the lights inside were off. I assumed that the store was closed, but as I got closer, I saw that the doors were open. I walked inside, the bell jingling as I pushed the door open. The store was dimly lit and had an eerie, abandoned feeling to it. I shrugged it off, thinking that maybe they were just running on a generator or something. I began to shop, picking up my usual items as well as a few things I didn't need but looked good. As I walked through the store, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I turned around a few times but didn't see anyone. I thought I was just being paranoid and continued shopping. I picked up my groceries and headed to the checkout, eager to get out of the store and away from the strange feeling. As I was paying for my groceries, the cashier looked at me with a worried expression and said, "Be careful out there." I didn't know what she meant, but the feeling of unease returned full force. I quickly left the store and got into my car. As I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was following me. But when I looked in the rearview mirror, there was no one there. I tried to avoid the store as much as possible, but I needed groceries. I thought maybe it was all just in my head, and that if I just went back and faced my fear, everything would be all right. So, one day, I decided to go back to the store and try to ignore the strange occurrences and focus on my shopping. As I walked through the aisles, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I kept seeing movement out of the corner of my eye, but when I turned around, no one was there. I heard whispers and footsteps, but when I looked, there was no one there. I started to feel like I was going crazy. I tried to focus on my shopping and ignore the strange happenings, but it was hard to shake the feeling of being watched. I was constantly looking over my shoulder, and I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that was building inside of me. I was about to leave the store, my cart full of groceries, when I saw it. At the end of the aisle, there was a figure standing there. It was a man, dressed in old-fashioned clothes, with a pale face and dark circles under his eyes. He was staring at me with an intense look on his face. I froze, feeling like I was trapped in a nightmare. The figure began to move towards me, and I turned to run. I pushed my cart as fast as I could, but the figure seemed to be getting closer. I could feel its cold breath on the back of my neck. I reached the entrance of the store and stumbled out into the parking lot. I looked back, but the figure was gone. I got into my car and drove away, feeling like I had just escaped from a horror movie. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, even when I was home. I would see shadows out of the corner of my eye, and I would hear whispers and footsteps, but when I turned around, no one was there. I started to feel like I was losing my mind. I tried to tell myself that it was just my imagination, that I was just tired and stressed. But deep down, I knew that something was wrong. I knew that there was something in that store, something that didn't want me there. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that I needed to stay away from it. I avoided the store as much as possible, but sometimes I would find myself driving by it, just to see if it was still there. And it always was. The lights were always off and the windows were always fogged up. And I always felt like I was being watched. I never found out what happened in that store, and I didn't want to. Before we continue, subscribe for more stories like these. I woke up early that morning, feeling a sense of excitement and adventure. I had been feeling stressed lately with work and personal life, but I was determined to have a good day. I got dressed, had a quick breakfast and headed out the door. As I drove to the store, my mind was racing with thoughts of work and personal issues. I tried to shake off the feeling of anxiety and focus on the task at hand. The day was beautiful, the sun was shining and the birds were singing. I thought to myself, maybe it will be a good day after all. When I arrived at the store, I parked my car and got out. I took a deep breath and walked towards the entrance. As I walked inside, I couldn't help but notice how quiet it was. I didn't see any other customers or employees. I shrugged it off again, thinking that maybe I was just early and that the store hadn't fully opened yet. As I walked through the aisles, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The store was eerily quiet, and I couldn't find any of the employees. I shrugged it off and continued to shop, thinking that maybe they were just on break or in the back of the store. But as I turned the corner, I saw something that made my blood run cold. There, standing at the end of the aisle, was a figure dressed in old-fashioned clothes. I couldn't see its face, but I knew that it was watching me. I couldn't understand what was happening, my mind was racing. I tried to shake off the feeling of unease and continued to shop, but the figure was following me. I tried to ignore the figure, but it followed me wherever I went. I walked to different aisles, but the figure was always there, watching me. I could feel its gaze on me and it was making me increasingly uneasy. I picked up a few more items and headed towards the cash register. As I walked, I felt a chill run down my spine. I turned around, but the figure was gone. I was relieved but still uneasy. I paid for my groceries and headed to the exit. As I walked out of the store, I saw the figure again. It was standing in the parking lot, watching me. I froze, unsure of what to do. My heart was pounding in my chest. I tried to shake off the feeling of unease and continued walking to my car, but the figure was following me. It was getting closer and closer. I got into my car and locked the doors. As I started the engine, I saw the figure in the rear-view mirror. It was still watching me. I quickly backed out of my parking spot and drove away, my heart pounding in my chest. I could see the figure in my rear-view mirror, standing there and watching me as I drove away. The figure's presence had completely taken over my thoughts and I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched and followed. I knew that I had to get away from the store as fast as possible. I never went back to that store again, and I never spoke of what had happened to anyone. I had just moved to a new city, and I was still getting used to my new surroundings. I had left my old life behind, including my job, friends, and family. I needed to start fresh, and I thought that this new city would be the perfect place to do that. I had a small apartment, and I was determined to make the best of it. I had been living in my new city for a few weeks, and I had fallen into a routine. I would wake up early, make breakfast, and then spend my day job hunting and exploring my new city. I was feeling good, and I was looking forward to making new friends and building a new life for myself. One day, as I was running low on groceries, I decided to go to the local grocery store to stock up. I grabbed my keys and headed out to my car. The drive to the store was uneventful, and I hummed along to the radio as I drove. When I arrived at the store, I parked my car and walked towards the entrance. The store was busy but not too crowded, and I made my way to the produce section to grab some fresh fruits and vegetables. I was feeling good, and I was looking forward to cooking a nice dinner later that night. As I was browsing the aisles, I started to notice some strange things. The store seemed to be getting colder, and I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing up. I thought it was just my imagination and shrugged it off, but then I saw something that made me pause. In the corner of my eye, I saw a ghostly figure watching me from the end of the aisle. I froze in place, not daring to move. But when I turned to look, there was nothing there. I quickly finished my shopping and ran out of the store. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I would see the ghostly figure everywhere I went in the store. It seemed to be following me, always watching me. I tried to ignore it, but it was getting harder and harder to do. As the day went on, things started to get worse. I couldn't focus on my work, and I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that was hanging over me. I tried to talk to my friends and family about it, but they didn't believe me. I was starting to feel like I was losing my mind. That night, I couldn't sleep, and I decided to go back to the store. I needed to know what was going on. As I walked through the store, the ghostly figure appeared again. It seemed to be getting closer and closer. I started to run, but it was like I was running in slow motion. In the end, I was driven mad by the ghostly figure, unable to continue with my daily life. It was just trying to scare and horrify me. I was trapped in a never-ending nightmare, with no escape. The ghostly figure was the spirit of a person who died in the store and was haunting it ever since. I just wanted to get out of there alive. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.